The Essay Architect, my journey to crafting high-scoring essays with confidence. I remember the statistics like they were burned into my brain. Over 75% of students struggle with essay writing at some point during their academic careers. It's a daunting number that haunted me every time I sat down in front of a blank screen. My name is Alex, and at 21 years old, I was one of those students. To anyone on the outside, it looked like I had my life together. I was in my third year of university, maintaining decent grades and juggling part-time work. But what no one saw was the war I fought with words. Every single essay assignment was a battlefield. The moment I read the prompt, a wave of anxiety washed over me. My chest tightened, my hands grew cold, and my mind spiraled into a whirlwind of thoughts. Where do I start? How do I structure this? What if I fail? It didn't matter that I knew the material inside and out. Once the word essay appeared on the syllabus, it was like my brain short-circuited. My thoughts were scattered, and every idea that came to mind seemed either too basic or completely off track. I would stare at the screen, blinking cursor mocking me, as if it knew I couldn't make sense of the words swirling in my head. The pressure to succeed academically was immense. My parents had worked hard to get me to this point, and I didn't want to let them down. But the more I tried to write, the harder it became to find my voice. It was like the ideas were locked behind an invisible wall that I just couldn't break through. My confidence shattered with each failed attempt. I would draft something, then delete it, draft again, and delete once more. The process was exhausting, and I found myself growing resentful toward every assignment. I distinctly remember one night in particular, sitting at my desk at 2 a.m., the deadline for my latest essay just hours away. My room was dark, save for the harsh light of the laptop, casting shadows around me. I was paralyzed, my mind completely blank. Panic set in, and before I knew it, tears welled up in my eyes. I felt like a failure. I was so frustrated with myself. How could something as simple as writing an essay be this difficult? The next morning, I dragged myself to class, knowing I had submitted something that didn't reflect my effort or understanding. When my professor handed back my paper a week later, there it was in red ink. C+. Could have been more structured. Lacks depth. Those words sliced through me. It wasn't just the grade that hurt. It was the confirmation of what I had been fearing all along. I wasn't good enough. And the worst part? That C+ wasn't even my lowest score. I had scraped by with a D on a previous essay, and that grade had nearly convinced me that I wasn't cut out for university. My self-doubt began to grow like a poison, spreading into other parts of my life. I avoided social gatherings, skipped meals, and spent sleepless nights overthinking every decision I made. How could I move forward when I couldn't even get past this one hurdle? I'd sit in the campus library for hours, watching other students type away effortlessly, submitting their assignments with ease. I couldn't help but wonder how they managed to do it. Was I the only one who felt like this? Surely someone else had to be struggling too, right? But it never seemed that way. I felt isolated, trapped in this suffocating cycle of failure and inadequacy. The anxiety wasn't just mental, it became physical. I'd get headaches, feel nauseous, and sometimes my hands would even tremble when I tried to type. It wasn't just a matter of not knowing what to write. It felt like my body was rebelling against me whenever I sat down to work on an essay. I couldn't help but envy those who could put their thoughts down on paper so easily. I tried talking to friends about it, but they would shrug and tell me to just write something. I wanted to scream. Didn't they understand? It wasn't that simple for me. Every time I started, I was hit by this overwhelming feeling of not being enough. Not smart enough. Not creative enough. Not good enough. There were moments when I seriously considered giving up on my degree. I was drowning in this constant cycle of failure, and no matter how much effort I put in, it never seemed to be enough. The weight of it all started to take its toll. I lost motivation to study, stopped participating in class discussions, and barely handed in assignments on time. I would tell myself I'd do better on the next one, but the pattern just repeated. My family could sense something was wrong, but I didn't know how to explain it to them. How could I tell them that their bright, hardworking kid was struggling with something as basic as writing? I was supposed to be excelling, but instead, I felt like I was falling apart. The stress built up to the point where I couldn't even look at a computer screen without feeling that familiar knot in my stomach. My lowest point came during finals week. I had 2 essays due back to back, and I knew deep down I wasn't going to do well, but I pushed through, desperately hoping for a miracle. I submitted both essays with mere minutes to spare, but the outcome was what I had feared. I failed one of the essays completely and barely passed the other. The shame I felt was overwhelming. I couldn't face my friends, my professors, or even my family. I felt like an imposter, someone who didn't deserve to be in university. I spent weeks after that in a fog, questioning my abilities and my future. Every time I thought about the next semester, I felt a sense of dread creeping in. Was this going to be my life from now on? Struggling through every assignment, feeling like a failure at every turn? I didn't know how much more of it I could take. Looking back now, it's clear that the problem wasn't just my lack of writing skills. It was the crushing weight of self-doubt that held me back. The more I tried and failed, the deeper I fell into this pit of despair, convinced that I would never be able to break free. And with each failure, my confidence eroded further, until I didn't even believe I was capable of writing a coherent sentence, let alone an entire essay. That's when I knew something had to change. But at the time, I didn't know what that change would look like or how I would ever find my way out of this dark place. All I knew was that I couldn't keep living in this constant state of fear, failure, and self-loathing. As time went on, I realized that if I didn't make a change, I would keep spinning in this endless cycle of anxiety and failure. I didn't know where to start, but I knew I couldn't do it alone. The first step for me was admitting that I needed help. It wasn't easy. I had always been independent and didn't want to rely on others. But after one particularly bad night, where I barely managed to sleep from the stress of another essay deadline, I knew something had to give. I began looking into different strategies for overcoming writer's block and essay anxiety. I read articles, watched videos, and even reached out to a tutor. It became clear that my biggest hurdle wasn't necessarily my writing skills, but my mindset. My anxiety had grown so large that it was choking my ability to think clearly. I had to address the emotional side of my struggle if I was going to have any hope of improving academically. I decided to try therapy. At first, I was skeptical. How could talking to someone about my stress possibly help me write better essays? But my therapist introduced me to cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. CBT helped me identify the negative thought patterns that were feeding my anxiety. I learned how to challenge those thoughts and replace them with more productive ones. For example, instead of thinking, "I'll never be able to write this paper," I started telling myself, "I've done hard things before, and I can do this too." My therapist also suggested mindfulness exercises to help me stay grounded when I felt overwhelmed. These weren't overnight fixes, but they helped. I began incorporating short meditation sessions into my daily routine, focusing on my breathing and staying present. When I started feeling anxious, I could now catch myself before spiraling into panic. I wasn't perfect at it, but even small improvements made a big difference. Along with therapy, I also attended writing workshops on campus. These sessions provided practical tools for structuring essays, brainstorming ideas, and managing time effectively. One of the most important lessons I learned was how to break down the essay writing process into manageable steps. Before, I had always looked at an essay as one huge, overwhelming task. But now, I started approaching it piece by piece. Research first, then outlining, followed by drafting, and finally, editing. The feedback from my tutors was crucial too. They helped me see that my ideas weren't the problem. It was how I was organizing and presenting them. I learned about thesis statements, how to make strong arguments, and the importance of transitions between paragraphs. The writing process, which had once seemed like an impossible mountain to climb, became more like a series of small hills, challenging but conquerable. Still, even with these new strategies, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that I wasn't good enough. The fear of failure lingered in the background, and it took a while for me to truly believe in my progress. But little by little, I started noticing changes. My grades weren't perfect, but they were improving. More importantly, the crushing anxiety I once felt when faced with an essay assignment was easing. I'll never forget the first time I received an A on an essay after starting this journey. It felt surreal. I had put everything I learned into that paper, every strategy from my therapy sessions, every writing tip from my workshops. And it worked. For the first time in a long time, I felt proud of myself. That small victory was like a light breaking through the clouds, showing me that change was possible. But my transformation wasn't complete until I discovered something that became a true turning point. I had been doing better, yes, but I was still searching for a structured guide, something that could provide clear steps to help me consistently write essays with confidence. That's when I stumbled upon a book titled The Essay Architect: Craft High-Scoring Essays with Confidence. It was like finding a missing puzzle piece. This book was a game changer for me. It broke down the essay writing process in a way that was easy to follow and incredibly effective. The methods in the book helped me refine my approach, from brainstorming to the final edit. Each chapter offered practical, actionable advice that I could immediately apply to my work. I practiced the steps outlined in the book, and over time, my essays transformed. The strategies for organizing ideas, crafting compelling arguments, and building confidence in my writing became second nature to me. If you're watching this and you're struggling with writing essays like I did, I can't recommend this book enough. The Essay Architect: Craft High-Scoring Essays with Confidence gave me the tools I needed to break free from the cycle of anxiety and failure. It can do the same for you. If you're ready to take control of your essay writing process, grab a digital copy of the book at libraryffy.com. The link is in the description. Trust me, it could be the change you've been looking for.